Get it warmed up.
Come on, Rick, nail that throttle.
Here he comes. Watch this sucker take off. Waving and holding his head high on the way out. We'll see what he looks like when he comes down. You know he's going to do something because he had Rick put on that parachute. And Rick says, "Where's the ripcord?"
You ain't hit the ground yet.
You missed that, Billy. As Rick climbing in the plane, he says, "Where's the ripcord?" Got to talk to this pilot before that plane comes over. All right, that was neat, huh?
Hey, Don.
Right there, that guy holding the camera.
That one holding the camera.
I'm not sure what. I doubt we, went real high. It's great.
That's mine.
That one is?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She's following the ball. He actually has a chain.
Well, that's the first aerobatics I've ever done.
Oh, is it?
I know. Before, I thought I better try it.
When you touch the down on the runway, so you got to kind of S-turn your way through to see where the hell you are.
That's down this far.
Here we go. Cuban A. Hammerhead. That was awesome when we did that. That would give you quite the feel. Oh man, you get right up there and stop, and then he kicks full rudder. Stall. He's gonna do a spin. Yeah. Slipping it right in, see that?
Oh yeah, he gets a great slip. He did a great slip with you.
Yeah, boy, it just made my stomach go when he slipped that thing in. Look at that slip.
Yeah.
That's a good
Right down.
Then you stop it. Look at that. Catch it right.
He's great with that. That's easy touch.
That make your stomach go up there a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That kind of height.
You'll see.
You next?
Yeah.
I've been waving, but we don't know what the inside of the cockpit smells like. Cliff and I know they got one just like this for sale.
Oh, yeah?
Nice. Don't get too close. Don't touch it. Just look at it.
What's the secret to this belt?
It's probably hot. It's the flying.
Plane with the right stick only. You use the left stick for throttle control and for steering the plane on the ground during takeoff. For most of your flight training, once the plane is in the air, your right hand will do the flying. Alan, it's one thing to talk about the control movements, but before going out to fly, spend some time at home with the transmitter in the airplane. Practice the movements of the sticks until you can do them instinctively.
I'll do that, and I'll be ready for our first lesson.
Good. And while you practice at home, there's another matter to think about. That's control reversal when the plane is headed towards you.
That's confusing. Can you show me what that means?
Yes. The model is out in front, heading away from us. Now, when we make a turn to the left, using left aileron and up elevator, the plane moves to the left. When we want the plane to move to our right, we give it right aileron and up elevator.
Right. I've got that.
Now we'll turn the model around, heading toward us. If you want the plane to move toward your left, which control do you give?
Left. No, right. I see what you mean. How do you keep all this straight?
Well, you've got to move the sticks while imagining that you're in the airplane. Give it left or right control to make the plane go where you want it to go. With practice, you'll do this instinctively, no matter which direction the plane is heading. While learning, your concern will probably be to keep the wings level when the plane is headed toward you. This is most important during the landing approach. A tip may help. Level the wings up by moving the stick toward the low wing. There. Which way did you move the stick?
To the left.
Correct. And so left aileron will pick up the right wing to level the plane.
I can see how it works. When the plane is heading toward us, moving the stick toward the low wing will pick it up and level the wing.
But remember, that's a tip to use while learning. To really fly right, you have to imagine that you're in the cockpit of the airplane doing the flying. This sounds a little more complicated than it really is. You'll see when we get out to the field to do the flying.
What's the significance of the colored flags on the transmitter antennas?
We're legally permitted by the Federal Communications Commission to operate our model aircraft on certain frequencies. For easy viewing, all modelers show their transmitter frequency by using a colored and numbered frequency flag on their antenna. Each frequency is color-coded, and the newer frequencies are also numbered. The key to safe RC flying is to be sure that two transmitters on the same frequency are never turned on at the same time. If only a few friends are flying together, they may be safe enough by simply knowing who's on a particular frequency. But at any larger gathering, there has to be some sort of near-foolproof system. Commonly used is a frequency pin system which can have several variations. Before we fly, we go up to the frequency control board to get the pin for our frequency. If the pin is available, we put it on our transmitter antenna. If the pin's in use, we must wait for the other flyer to finish with it. The simple rule is, never turn on your transmitter unless you have the correct frequency pin. Wherever you fly, the first thing to do is find out what sort of frequency control system is used. Then comply with that procedure. It's also a good idea to keep some distance between you and the other flyers on the flight line. Normally, the pilots line up parallel to the runway or takeoff zone. It's not safe for a pilot to wander out toward the takeoff area. Beside the possibility of getting hit by another model, he may block someone's view of their own aircraft while it's coming in for a landing. Although the models are flying on separate frequencies, if another flyer with a transmitter gets between you and your model, his transmitter may swamp your receiver. The result could be a crash for your model.
Isn't it about time we started flying?
We're almost ready, but there's a few more things to cover. One of them is a field box.
Is all of that stuff necessary?
I've probably got more than I need. This setup has a 12-volt motorcycle battery which powers the electric starter, the electric fuel pump, and lights the glow plug. I also carry a gallon of fuel, plenty of extra propellers, a tachometer, and a lot of miscellaneous stuff. Before going out to the field, the transmitter's battery pack and the aircraft's battery pack must be fully charged. The radio's instructions will tell you how to use the charger. The rechargeable NiCad batteries used today are very convenient. The best way to prevent failure is to charge them periodically, even if you don't fly every weekend. Keep your eye on a transmitter output meter. If it indicates lower than normal output, the batteries should be checked. And if you notice the servos in the plane are operating slower than normal, have those batteries checked. A new model should receive a close going over by an experienced flyer. There's a lot to check, and the most important is the radio installation with the linkage hookups. The hinges, control horn, and clevises should be solidly secured. The push rod should move freely, but must not flex when the control surfaces are pushed. The servo mounting must be solid and strong, but the servos must be free to move slightly on their rubber grommet mounts. The receiver and battery pack should be surrounded by foam rubber. This isolates them from vibration and protects them in case of a crash. The engine and muffler should be firmly mounted and the bolts checked for tightness. Because of the vibration, I occasionally find a loose muffler bolt or engine mounting bolt. I'd rather find it on the ground than in the air. I've seen engines and mufflers fall off in flight. The wing should fit tightly on the fuselage with no rocking. Before flying, a radio ground range check should be made. After all this, the plane is flown by a capable test pilot. Following the successful test flight, the plane should be looked over again to be sure nothing has worked loose. Now is a good time to mention the Academy of Model Aeronautics. The AMA is our national organization, a non-profit group whose purpose is to promote model aviation as a worthwhile recreation activity and sport. Almost all RC clubs require that you belong to the AMA as a condition for club membership and for use of the club's flying field. The reason, in addition to supporting our organization, is the liability insurance coverage provided by AMA membership. Although accidents are very rare in this hobby, they can happen, and the AMA's insurance will protect us. Now let's go out and do some flying. Out here at the flying field, there's a few things we'll check out now, and then we can get into the air. Before we start the engine, let's make a ground range check of the radio. That's done with the transmitter antenna removed or collapsed. We have to be sure the radio is operating correctly. I'll walk off with the transmitter and operate the controls, and you can signal me when a movement becomes erratic or stops.
That's it, all the surfaces are chattering now.
That's normal. That's what happens when a radio runs out of range. Looks like it's operating okay. We'll make a final check now to be sure all the surfaces are operating and moving in the right direction. It's amazing how many accidents occur because a plane is flown with one of the controls hooked up backwards. We'll avoid that mistake. Also, make sure the transmitter antenna is fully extended before flying. It's important to have the aircraft set up for training. An experienced pilot should check out the plane first, adjust it, and make sure it's flying correctly. An experienced flyer can handle a sensitive airplane and enjoy it, but for the novice, the control surface movement should be reduced. This makes the plane less sensitive and easier for a beginner to fly. Set up this way, the plane probably won't perform the aerobatic maneuvers a skilled pilot likes to do, but it'll make flying easier for the student.
What about a buddy box hookup for training?
It's certainly not a necessity for training. The traditional method is for the instructor to take the plane off, trim it out to get it flying smoothly, slow it down, and then hand the transmitter to the student. The instructor stands next to the student and tells him how to move the controls as he flies. Obviously, the student has to have faith in the instructor and should do exactly what he's told when he's told. That's why the student must know which way to move the sticks when the instructor tells him what to do. I've seen planes crash when the instructor says up and the student pushes the control stick up, making the plane dive. Alan, we won't have any misunderstandings like that. When a student pilot gets into trouble, he should hand a transmitter right back to the instructor, quickly. I've seen an instructor and a student fighting over the transmitter while the airplane crashed. An instructor has to be dedicated and alert and has to watch out for trouble at any time. I've filled the fuel tank, and now if you'll hold on to the plane, I'll start the engine. We'll stay away from the propeller. It can do some serious damage. It's a good safety idea to keep out of the propeller line in case a prop blade flies off the engine. The electric starter makes things easier, although we could start it by hand.
It started right up. That was easy. Boy, it feels like plenty of power.
Hold the plane pointed up while I rev up the engine to check the adjustment. Sounds good. Set it down. I've got it adjusted pretty well now. That idle is reliable and it's slow enough for good landings. I'll taxi around a little to be sure everything is operating correctly and to see if the plane can move okay on this grass field.
Before I try, how about a demonstration of the right way to fly?
That's what we'll do. You stand close by me so you can see the stick positions on the transmitter as I'm flying. You'll notice that full stick movement is almost never needed for normal flying. For the first takeoffs, the best position is directly behind the model with the plane headed right into the wind or close to it. From this position, it's easy to see the plane if it veers to the right or left. We use the rudder to steer the plane straight down the runway for the takeoff. Crosswind conditions can make takeoffs very difficult, particularly with most training aircraft. The high wing location makes the plane sensitive to winds from the side, making it hard to steer the model in a straight line on the ground, and the winds can easily knock it over. Low wing, more powerful and faster aircraft aren't bothered as much by crosswinds. With our trainer plane, we'll try to take off straight into the wind. When I'm ready, I'll advance the throttle on the left control stick and steer the aircraft again with the left stick for rudder and nose gear control. We have to keep the plane going in the right direction until it's moving fast enough to fly. If the model is given too much up elevator before it's going fast enough to fly, it can jump into the air, stall, and will probably crash. When flying speed is reached, a little up elevator will cause the plane to lift off the ground. We're in the air. Notice that I'm keeping the nose down for a shallow climb out. This is for safety so the plane doesn't stall. Also, if the engine happened to cut out for some reason, we could glide the plane in for a safe landing, like this, so the plane isn't damaged. It's usually safest to let the plane land straight ahead in the direction of the takeoff. If you try to turn the plane around to get back to the field, it may stall and crash unless you have enough airspeed and altitude. You've got to learn pretty quickly how to be able to handle the plane on takeoff from beside the runway. On a busy flying field, you'd be a real hazard if you were